Check, check, mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Welcome back, everybody. Let's go full screen. Oh my gosh, my hair's poking out of my hat. Happy Tuesday, May 12th. Yo, shout out to Mount Doji, man. You are always the first one in the comments, showing love, giving me energy and validation, which is exactly what I need in this market, man. So I appreciate you. My name is Icy Gaming. This is Gaming Daily Live. I hope that you guys are having a fantastic start to your week. I can't believe we're halfway through May. This is insane. The new Drake album drops on like Friday. Half the internet hates that. The other half is looking forward to it. But that's not why we're here. We are here because, let me add the screen back. Most Web3 games are failing for many reasons, but most of them for the same reason, because they launched a token before they shipped a game. And today's guests have done quite the opposite. They raised money via equity, which is super interesting. I want to talk to them about that. They skipped, the airdrop cycle, BS farming, and they actually built like a really great game on chain in a sci-fi world from the ground up. So I'm so excited to talk to these guys. This is one of the games that like could change Web3 gaming forever, because they're actually, like Giga Chads and building the right way. And yeah, today's going to be a really great conversation. Dub in the building. I appreciate you, man. Good to see you. Good to see you. Also, before we get started, big shout out to the sponsors that make this show possible. Shout out to Blaze. We're streaming there live right now. And shout out to YGG Play. You guys already know. There's not many of us. I was saying this to Hemdall and Fleet backstage. There's not many of us still pushing Web3 gaming forward. So we got to band together and support each other. Because if this space is going to be inevitable, it's going to be because the people that are here today are the ones that are going to make it so, like Dub, like Doji, like Hemdall, and like Fleet, who are backstage. So let's get these Chads on the stage once I can click on the right thing. And they're on video today, which is amazing. Fleet, Hemdall, welcome to Gaming Daily. How you gentlemen doing?
Awesome, brother. Awesome. Love the energy, bro.
Thank you. As soon as we go live, the energy just kicks in, man.
More than I have.
Guys, thank you so much. This is long overdue. But at the same time, you guys have been kind of building in stealth in many ways, building for a long time, heads down. I'm super excited for what you guys are doing. Just like quick, like background, right? Citadel plays in the browser. I'm going to just read Hemdall Sweets, right? Let me pull up this one. Which one? This one? Yeah. Mixing the best elements of MMOs, ARPGs, extraction games, bringing the best parts from like Diablo 2 loot or, Path of Exile, with, so many of the right ingredients. And it's really exciting. It's like everything, it's on chain. It's kind of like the dream. Like if crypto gamers could like design the perfect crypto game, I think it would be Citadel. And that's probably why people like Apex and some of the diehards here, Dub in the comments, like are paying such close attention to Citadel and rooting for you guys. So there's a lot to get into. Not to like, no big responsibility there, guys. But I guess like, how are you guys doing? It's May 2026. You've been having some, starting to make some noise. You guys had the demo at GDC. I think you guys had like a recent kind of closed play test, starting to make some noise, sharing some works in progress. But I guess before getting into all that, like, how are you guys feeling in 2026?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, dude, we've been building a long time. We started with the initial cohort of the Wolf Game guys on our first version of the game back in 2021, end of 2021. And back then the game looked a lot different. It was like a top-down 2D pixel spaceship. We were going to do the whole NFT thing, miners versus marauders. And then 3 years ago we pivoted to like, let's go for gold, man. Let's do exactly what the game we want to create, which was like, basically, from Fleet's perspective, was going to be EVE Online 2.0. And then, mixing like basically what we all like on the team. So like, they were very like EVE background players. I come from playing Diablo 2, like over 10,000 hours. And we're trying to mix together all the elements that the team loves, into one game and make it all cohesive and make sense, which turned out to be a lot of freaking work. Making it easy, I'll tell you what. It's probably like, it's got to be one of the most difficult things to do.
Yeah, for sure. I love this. There's like this crypto quote where it's like, we don't do it because it's easy. We do it because like we got into it because we thought it'd be easy.
Yeah. It's definitely probably the hardest. I mean, like making a game is like incredibly hard. Like if you actually care. I mean, like all of us have like tens of thousands of hours in our favorite games, and to us, it's more making a thing that we actually want to exist, not like the typical like you get a bunch of game industry like experts or AAA people and you put them all in a room with a bunch of like VC money and some guy who like rinsed and sold some like random vision to some VCs and then like hope something comes out of it. Like I mean, clearly that hasn't worked, but which isn't a shocker. But yeah, making like an actual game and then trying to do it on chain and care that it has every medium rolled up into one in terms of like the artistic endeavors, the visuals, you have sound, you have UI design, and obviously all the game design thing has to be fun in the first place. You have the art of software development, which is kind of a bit lost with today's like clankers, but it's also more accelerated than ever, so you kind of can balance both ish. But yeah, basically like every problem that could exist exists in making a game, and then we layered on making a Web3 game, which is even harder, and then doing it on chain, which is basically impossible.
So and we're like, let's do it in the browser only also, which is a whole nother problem.
We all are big like permadeath, super hardcore, fans. So of course the thing we end up making is just as hardcore and permadeath as it could possibly be. So it is brutal, but it's very fun. But yeah, it's a lot.
How do you guys, so for the uninitiated, where is the stage of the game as of right now? And like, how are you guys looking at, the next few months or the timeline, I guess, for, you know, more play tests or people kind of getting in there and showing things off? Because I mean, I think like as far as I'm aware, like the GDC demo, which I've got up on the screen here, was kind of the first time that I started to really see some stuff. I saw like, you know, screenshots and maybe like some small clips on the timeline, but you know, this was the first time that I saw people playing it. So I guess like, what is the current status of the game development and whatever you can share?
Yeah, I think it's very rough, but it's like starting to come together. You can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel in a sense of like things are playing nicely together. The game kind of has like a bit of a direction and feels a bit cohesive. So I mean, we've been playtesting kind of in, you know, small groups since late last year. Outside of the team, and I think the game is basically at the point where we're ready to do more like public kind of open play testing and start kind of like doing actual marketing and like being public about it and like sharing it, which is kind of what we've been slowly doing. Not the best, like we're pretty insular, maybe to a fault, and heads down also to a fault, but like it's becoming good enough where we feel like not embarrassed to like show it, even though like that probably would have been fine to show it much longer ago, but like we want to deliver, you know, something that has actually a real game that feels and looks and plays like a game that, you know, is touching on all the heartstrings of what a Web3 game or a player-driven economy like is kind of meant to do or feel like, even though it's not all there yet. You can, if you play it, you can see how all those things might, you know, come to fruition, even if they're there in looser bits and parts at the moment. So yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to run like a pretty massive playtest, maybe end of this week or next week. We're gonna merge in our closed playtest server into our main public one and kind of get that whole Discord running again, and post on Twitter and try to stress test stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's time to like share it basically. So we'll try to be more public and getting it out there.
And then do you guys have any targets for, you know, I don't know if you consider yourself pre-alpha right now, but like getting into alpha stages and, you know, private betas, public betas, and like kind of what, if you had to project out, like what would do the next, you know, 1 to 2 years look like? Are you guys trying to launch the game, you know, by the end of the year, or is it targeting 2027, or like, how do you guys even, have you guys even like communicated anything like that, or are you thinking about it? Again, obviously, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
No, we're pretty open book. We haven't really communicated much to anyone. I mean, we announced Citadel like 2.0, the go for the gold vision like 3 years ago, roughly. And then like just haven't really said anything since in the Discord. Like, I mean, we've been talking in the Discord the whole time and like sharing stuff and posting, but like the announcements channel is just, here's like this big 2.0 vision and a bunch of like sneak peeks, and like we'll be updating you guys soon. And they're just like, like we're just heads down, constantly working. We're just sharing everything in chat. But yeah. So, yeah. I mean,
which just to like comment on that, I feel like, you know, in 2026 as of right now, it feels like the right strategy, or like it feels like it's proven to be the best strategy, right? Because a lot of teams really, I think, shot themselves in the foot by over promising and then under delivering. Yeah. And I mean, that's just been the bane of a lot of teams. And I feel like Citadel, this might be like a wild comparison to make, but it's just the one that comes to mind. Like, reminds me of like The Weeknd, the artist, like back in like, I don't know, 2012, like didn't do any interviews. No one even knew what he looked like just let the work speak for himself, and was had this like mystery about him. And I feel like that's very much like the Citadel as well, which is great. You guys have just been cooking and doing, focused on the things that matter, which I think, you know, as I look at what the game is and the scope of it is, like that's what it takes to make that, right? We don't need all the engagement farming on Twitter, you know.
that stuff is mostly like just cover up tactics to like shill and dump and rinse Web3, whatever they have left. Like,
Yeah.
if you have a real product and a real game, like it should probably be pretty exciting, especially in an industry or the Web3 market, considering like basically zero games actually exist. So I feel like if you could provide a real one, it should travel pretty far, especially one that like if you were just to click a link, it loads in 10 seconds and you're playing like this crazy actual, like it's not a AAA game, but like it feels, it's a serious game, a serious product. So yeah, for us, it's like, yeah, we could have like talked more. I mean, when we first started the server, we were very, building in public, constantly sharing, and we still fully agree with that. But like, there's a lot of work to do. So we mostly were like, there's no point in, writing more extensive, long updates versus get the game actually there and let it, speak for itself. And I think that's, more important than most things. So, you could, I mean, I don't really get the point of engagement farming for a product that doesn't exist. So maybe engagement farming makes sense when there's actually a product, but I don't think we'll need it.
Yeah.
Cool. Can we go back a little bit? I guess I'm curious. Obviously, you guys have a ton of gaming background, Diablo and Eve. I'm curious, and obviously, you guys were from, the first era of crypto gaming with Wolf Game and everything. But for the audience and maybe for people, again, who are uninformed, what is that background story? What is the lore for both of you guys? How you got into crypto and then like saw what was happening in crypto gaming and kind of got involved? Was it Wolf Game? Like, were you guys just doing some DeFi stuff and then Wolf Game was like, whoa, like this is crazy, and then you wanted to make your own game? Like, how did this even kind of come to be? Maybe Hemdahl, maybe start with you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I came onto the project after Fleet already started it. I got into crypto a long time ago in like 2017. I found Ripple on like some weird internet forum, and I ended up buying like a few $100, and then that turned into a ton of money. And then I got kind of hooked on crypto from there. I just kind of invested for like a few years, and then right around mid 2021, my dad sent me like an Alex Becker video of like NFTs and gaming and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is the thing, man. That makes so much sense. And so I got really into the space, and then I ran across these guys on Twitter, and I was like, oh, this looks like a really sick project. I'd seen Wolf Game, and I was like, I want to find something like that actually is going to work. They were going to do it the right way with like governance and all these things. And I was like, I just want to be a part of this thing. So I get into the Discord finally, because they had like the Discord closed and you had to like wait on Twitter until it opened up and like join it. And I start like, WAGMI zombieing, like trying to get like a whitelist in the chat. And I'm like, all right, this is not working. So I wrote like a whole economic thesis and I sent it to the team, and they like read it and they're like, this is perfect. Like, do you want to join the team like 2 weeks later? And so
wow.
I just kind of started working with them, no expectations, no nothing. And then they ended up making me a co-founder, kind of against my will, at some point. So, but yeah.
That's amazing. That's like the most, and I don't say this negatively, but that's like the most normie onboarding to then like hardcore, like authentic, like from Ripple and Alex Becker to, the on-chain MMO, like, Web3 Eve, that like the space is like rooting and rallying for is insane lore and incredible. Shout out to your dad, man. Thank goodness you saw that Alex Becker video.
It's all thanks to him, man.
Fleet, what about you, man? What's your crypto lore?
It's definitely a bit longer. I started in crypto around like 2015, 2016 because I was playing a massive amount of EVE Online. I essentially skipped all of high school and middle school and basically college to play EVE Online, which I think turned out pretty well. I thought it was more interesting, but at the time I was doing like a lot of, I was a pretty good player and I was playing with some pretty good people, some of which are even members of the team or co-founders to this date. But we were doing some real money trading you know, since Eve is like a player-driven economy and such like that, and so it was pretty often like you'd run into like, especially because there's a lot of other countries and Eve is a single sharded server, so you play with Russians and you know, China and all these different like actual deep, you know, demographics. And you know, if you were to do some like real money trading, it was easier to do like Bitcoin back then. So a lot of people were like, or at least I was exposed to Bitcoin in like 2015, 2016, and then I found Ethereum around my birthday, like 2016, I think, and I bought some for like $3 or $7.
Yeah.
I was like pretty painful to think about now. But I was very interested about like all the kind of the open source, like the research aspects of it, and a lot of like the more interesting like cryptographic like areas. And it was definitely like less griftery and more just nerds and like technical back then, and that kind of fit in well. And so I ended up like building a bunch of Ethereum farms with one of our, I guess, mining officer, Martino, who's one of the co-founders who I met in Eve. And so we had like a ton of graphics cards, and I turned my brother and my sister's room into like saunas running these massive graphics cards. And then I ended up using like more electricity than like my entire neighborhood for one house. And so the electric company got really mad, and so I had to like sell all that stuff. But it was a pretty good profit. So I ran that for a few months, and then, but like during that time, I kind of got more into Ethereum and everything like that. And I really liked Ethereum as an idea. And around that time, especially because we were doing so much of the Bitcoin trading for like Eve and then all sorts of stuff like that, it's like, man, Eve is like the actual perfect substrate for like a token-based economy, or like a real player-driven economy. You know, Eve is more of a sandbox than anything else, but it still is ultimately controlled by developers, and like things would change all the time, which is, I mean, that's real life to a certain extent, you know, in economies and countries. But like we joked about like, you know, back to like 2016, like, you know, Eve was still a shit game, and it still is to this day. And we say that with tens of thousands of hours playing it. Any game that is good is a shit game.
Yeah.
You know, if it makes you mad, then it's a good game. But so we joked about, you know, we'll make Eve 2 when we're older, maybe we're more successful and we have some capital and some money to do it, and we'll do it right. And we'll, you know, fully drive the player-driven economy, the real, you know, actual player-driven world to like an extent that, you know, no one had ever done before. And so we were thinking about like the blockchain-based games, like 2016-ish, but it was mostly like a joke. But it was like an ongoing joke. And then eventually it stopped being a joke, and it's not really that funny anymore, because now it's been 5 years since we've been working on this. It's like the worst joke I ever told.
Hey guys, we should make a video game.
Yeah, exactly. Terrible joke. But so what happened was, so we were always thinking about that and constantly going back to it. And then it was the Wolf game stuff happened. And I was just, you know, I was active in NFT, crypto, Twitter, losing money and making a ton of money like everyone else, and round tripping everything. But I stumbled across Wolf game. I thought the whole idea of like the on-chain game, the decentralized part, I was like, oh, this is like everything we've been thinking about. And so then we were looking at, you know, me and the CTO, Citadel, were like looking at the contracts and everything like that. Like, oh, wow, this is like, one, it's like extremely simple, but two, like extremely dog shit. And there's just riddled with like exploits. And we found like a pretty massive one, which is, I mean, massive. It was ultimately simple as a simple like reentrancy, where you could, you know, drain the entire, you know, liquidity and all the sheep and everything, and you could lock everything up and take everything. And, you know, we tried to contact the developers, and they banned us from the server, saying we were fudding. We were just trying to fix it. And then we posted on Twitter, and that like blew up. And then from that point on,
Which is still your pinned tweet to today, right?
Oh yeah, I thought it was hilarious. Because I had to post this because they weren't listening, and
Yeah.
you know, so like it was the only way, because like it was a legitimate problem. Like it could have
Yeah.
wiped the whole thing. I mean, I guess it kind of ultimately did in a roundabout way, but it resurged. Otherwise, everyone would have lost everything for sure. So at least they had some control. But yeah, it was like that point where it's like, oh, like we could totally do like this like on-chain game and make it like an actual, because Wolf game was still just literally like buttons. It was like click to deposit, click to withdrawal, and it was just game theory, you know, packed. But like it could have been a full, like an actual game. And I was thinking like, you know, I have probably 1,000 hours in like Faster Than Light, which is like an indie game, which is like where kind of the 2D pixel spaceship, like top down, originally came from. I was like, oh, we could totally make like a multiplayer on-chain like FTL so quickly. Probably would take like 3 weeks. And then so we did that, and we ended up fixing a bunch of other like on-chain games and getting paid for it, and that was pretty nice. And then we basically finished that version. It was very simple, but it was definitely more of a game than any like on-chain game or any at the time. But it was like, man, that was pretty easy. And like, what if we like worked on it for like 1 more week? Like we had just a couple more ideas, and then retards like Heimdall joined, and we're like, what if you even took it further with like the economics, like even further? And it's like, well, that's everything we technically thought about. And then more, special people like Flam joined, who was one of the other co-founders, and started talking about the governance and everything like that. And eventually he was like, okay, well, a couple more weeks. All right, well, like, let's take it for real. Let's get the economy audited, which no one had ever done. And then just, making it more and more of a game. And then like, as we were working on it, I just like, man, like a lot of this math and everything that we're doing for the on-chain stuff, like you could make it 3D. You're just basically adding another access, so instead of just, X, Y, and Z, why not have a fully 3D on-chain game? That sounds like rad as hell. Like that'd be fucking mind-blowing. Which was very hard. And still is not even like a lot of our on-chain stuff is simulated on-chain. We did a lot of work to like, so we can iterate fast, blah, blah. We can get more into that later, but like, yeah, I guess that's my backstory on the crypto stuff. So just been around.
That's awesome. It's called 0x Citadel, by the way, or just Citadel.
Well, yeah, and so like all that ship flying around, that's not a physics engine or anything. That's just math. So
well, I mean, the physics engine is just math.
Well, yeah, but you know what I'm saying. It's not like a typical game.
It's
right?
It's a closed form physics equation that basically is a single function that lets us run all the on-chain time-based behavior. So it looks like a lot of movement is actually very simple transactions, and then forecasting like a path through space to get to a certain point. And so it's like a function of time. And so then you could evaluate on chain based on the initial, transaction in the function. And these are the inputs. Where are they at in, based on this time sense. And so then you get, I mean, that's a very crude explanation, but that's, yeah. So
listen, I had to, I like that answer. It's just math. I had to explain jiggle physics to my girlfriend the other day, and now I'm just, babe, it's just math. It's just math. So I like that. Also,
we want the wallet address or the ENS handle of on-chain jiggle physics. I think that would be a banger, and I think we could really go to market with something like that.
There you go. That's early. Yeah, we better go get it right after while we're on this call. No, I appreciate you guys kind of like touching on those different points, because feels GigaBrain-esque to me. I mean, maybe not, right? It's just math, but I've kind of been on my soapbox for like, a lot of these Web3 games. What got me into Web3 gaming was like an on-chain game, really blending, NFTs, tokenomics, deep economy design with a very fun real game that you could play. That was the future that I saw, that I got really excited about. We strayed away from that as like, in 23 and 24 and definitely in 25, where, a lot of that stuff didn't, Axie crashed and the first cycle kind of ended. And then everyone was like, no, it needs to be Web 2.5, or it needs to be like a regular Web 2 game, everything obfuscated away. And, all the crypto stuff can be optional. And, it's in the background and all this stuff, which like, I think that's a fair design choice, but I don't think it's the only design choice. And then as a lot of those games have proven to not, work, and also personally, I'll say I felt kind of were uninspired. I found myself going back more to like, no, man, like, the games that inspired me were the ones that had these player owned economies and this working ecosystem that was integrated. And yeah, you can play your regular game, but then you go on their site and you're min maxing the math and doing this like heavy analysis. And I think I would like to get back to that because I think being crypto native, and truly understanding the space, and then building a game from like genuine inspiration and maybe insanity, but also from like guys that grew up playing Diablo and Eve, feels like the right way, or feels like one of the best ways to try and build something truly magical in the space. Again, no pressure, but I like admire what you guys are doing, and I can also understand and appreciate the undertaking that it's been. I mean, I'm 5 years into making content, and I'm like, damn, this is crazy. I guess like just speaking on that I guess we can. Well, no, let's dig into the mechanics and the math and the physics and everything. Like, how much of an undertaking has this been for you guys? Obviously, the common adage is costs twice as much, takes twice as long. And if we knew how hard it was going to be in the beginning, we probably never would have started. But I guess like, is there anything that has surprised you guys? Or was there anything that was like really challenging at one point where you're like, man, I don't know how we're going to make it or what we're going to do, or, were there any like crazy kind of moments in the journey of building the game, or also like incredible, cool discoveries where you're like, holy crap. Yeah, it is all math and we can make it a 3D game. And we had this breakthrough with one of the simulations that we had. And, like this is incredible. I threw a lot at you guys. I apologize. I kind of have a habit of doing that, but anything that resonated that comes to mind that you want to speak on?
I think you want to explain, but the key unlock for us, I think, was the movement stuff, right? Is figuring out whether we can do that.
That's the hardest and the biggest piece of it all is, I mean, you can't have a 3D open world game without actual like 3D movement. And if you're going to do an actual on-chain game, that is the right take on it. Where, I mean, because you could lose the on-chainness very quickly, and it becomes kind of diffused or pointless, and there's no point. You're basically Web 2.5, and at that point, you might as well just be Web 2, because basically you're getting all the downsides with none of the upsides.
Yeah, right.
Which is why
you don't go half game.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess the biggest breakthrough and realization was just how to do the 3D movement on chain with the closed form, equations and function of time based stuff, which that took like maybe a year and a half of like research and working with people who are definitely much smarter than us in a lot of the areas. We had a lot of the ideas and we worked a lot on it, and worked with them. But like, we worked with a guy who was like a patented fluid dynamics like engineer, and some other people who were worked at like JPL, who just found a lot of it interesting. And so there's a lot of back and forth, like a year and a half or so, and then like they just started working. I mean, like we knew you knew it could work, but like actually getting the math and for it to play nicely, that was a whole different thing. So, but I think once we had that, and that's basically one of the hardest parts of the on-chain.
And is that like baked into the smart contract, or how are you guys like? And I mean, maybe that's like your secret sauce to a certain degree, although it's on chain. So, but like, what can you share about that? Like, and does that have further implications to other either smart contract design and development, or game design in smart contracts? Curious.
trying to think of exactly what there's a few different forms of that question and a few different answers. Yeah, I mean, essentially, I mean, yeah, the everything, all the game state and all the logic, eventually is fully on chain. So things like that are, is on chain. So it's just a function that you give inputs into, and all the math for that is on chain. But it allows it to be a single transaction that you just provide, you use that function. So I guess maybe more specific of a question would be useful because it's a pretty broad area.
Yeah, I guess I mean, do you see any other applications of that for smart contract design, or is it really just limited to Citadel? And it's I mean, there's nothing else that anyone else would even use this for,
It's totally usable. And I mean, if you wanted any type of 3D on-chain movement, you could use this and plug and play it. And I mean, to a certain extent, obviously ours is based around mass and inertia and velocity, but and we initially it was a move to point type of behavior, and then I figured out some ways to use the same function and behavior and some changes to make it more so now it's WASD, but it's WASD on chain that's responsive, which is pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you could use it for any type of, if you want 3D movement, you could use that. And if you want, I think the nice thing is Citadel is in space or open world. I think if you wanted terrain that you walk on that has different elevations, you're probably cooked. But if you didn't if you had more isometric terrain, which is more Diablo or Path of Exile, you probably would be fine. But then you wouldn't even need such complex behaviors because you're just moving more in a point. But yeah, I mean, if you want to do any kind of complex 3D movement, we could reuse this. And if we wanted to make, you could adapt it to be, for other types of stuff. I think I wrote down a bunch of ways you could apply it to other games and how, but that was a while ago.
Well, and so there's a whole other host of constraints that you have also when trying to put it on chain. So if you look at this gameplay footage, you see that there's a targeting lock on that ship, right? That's all math based too. There's no actual projectile physics where the projectile flies and it actually hits the ship. It's based on mathematical calculation of the accuracy based on their velocity and all these different things. And so that's all going to be on chain and baked into logic as well. And it's just everything that you have to solve. Doing collisions on chain is another almost impossible problem to solve, which we kind of have a good line on, but again, it's everything that I think we got it figured out now. It's going to be tough. We're still working on it.
Yeah. But I mean, these are problems that are worth solving, that are inspiring, right? It's holy, that feels like an incredibly innovative breakthrough. Collisions on chain, right? 3D movement on chain is just wild. And I also think it's kind of, I don't know, I mean, it kind of reminds me of open source software in a way where, it's a gift to humanity or other developers or people. It's the work that you're doing can be built upon by other people, which I don't know if that's in your ethos or whatnot, but that's one thing that I always loved about, Tesla open sourcing their patents, because it's this is just for the betterment of everything. And obviously everything we're seeing right now in AI development and OpenClaw and whatnot, it feels very crypto ethos, where it's cool, we made some really amazing stuff, and we're using it for our thing, but any other people can build on it too. And obviously you don't have it all figured out, but that's the work that you're doing, which is freaking badass.
Yeah, I mean, technically it's Fortnite was a demo of the Unreal Engine, and
right.
Citadel is technically a demo of our Yeehaw engine, which is basically just the things that make Citadel work as an on-chain 3D based game, but I mean, you could take a lot of the same concepts and primitives and use it to, make other games. Like if we were going to make more on-chain games in the future as a studio, like we would reuse all of our existing work because there's no reason not to. And also, if you're making an on-chain game, you kind of have to be like an open source aficionado. So it kind of doesn't make sense to be against it. So yeah, like eventually, like, all that stuff will be, open source and available. And we definitely want people modding on top of the game. That's a big part of, our thesis or ideas around, the benefits of a fully on-chain game, especially an MMO is, live services. You can actually do like really interesting mods that are community driven that everyone experiences, and other interesting stuff on the client. But yeah, so it'll definitely be exciting, but I think, it's like Fortnite was the demo. It showed that it all worked. So we need to get Citadel to actually fully be together, and then it could be something that other people use to build other games and stuff.
For sure.
I think the most important part of all that is, like done on a public chain. And then obviously like we want the community or the player base to be the ones that actually own the game once it's fully on chain. That's like an issue that like Pirate Nation had. Like they said they were fully on chain and really gave the fully on chain game a bad name, the space a bad name, because when they shut down, they were like, oh, but I thought it was fully on chain, right? But they did it on their own private infrastructure. And nobody could actually really take the game over if they wanted to. And that's not the ethos of a fully on-chain game. The idea is that even if we were to somehow, disappear or something at some point, the players could actually keep running. The game would keep running basically forever, and that's the whole idea of the thing. Otherwise, there's no point in actually putting it on chain if it can't run on its own. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. Permadeath and permalife. Speaking of on-chain, I guess forgive me for not knowing. I'm not sure if you guys have committed to a chain. I think it was building on Ethereum. I don't know if that's still true or how you guys are looking at the on-chain space in terms of transaction costs and speed. I mean, any light that you can shine there would be interesting. Is the goal for this to live on Ethereum, or are you guys considering other chains that you would publish this on?
I mean, hopefully Ethereum is good enough by the time it's ready for us to like launch it that we can just host it all and run it on Ethereum. But the way we've approached building it is just to be L2 agnostic and building on an Ethereum based chain. So I mean, we spend mostly a lot of our time and effort, at least when it comes to the on-chain parts, making, getting the most gameplay out of every transaction, which is, like the closed form stuff, where it's like one transaction can represent a lot of movement and, the start and stop of module behaviors, and things like that. So, we haven't really selected any chain or put much time or thought into that, because it seems like they're all heavily competing and dying and starting new, just like any kind of Web3 game itself. And there's not really any clear winner. There's definitely like seemingly some exciting and like interesting ones, but they definitely are still, early. But yeah, ideally it would just be Ethereum. So maybe by the time we get to actually, moving the full game on chain, it'll just be Ethereum, which would be the best. But yeah, besides that, like we just run our own mock simulation environment for the chain, and we can kind of change the behaviors of what kind of network we want to simulate. So we can kind of test across different, current states and see how things perform. But yeah, so we're probably not going to pick anything for a while, just because we also don't need to right now. So by the time we do, we'll just see whoever is the best then, and then consider our options.
Respect. I think that's your decision's not being forced, and there's no reason to make a decision until that answer kind of presents itself, as well as like I mean, obviously it being EVM makes the most sense. So that's cool. I guess I'm curious, like, how big is the studio now? How many people are working on Citadel? And I know probably there's a mix of full-time and part-time and contractors and stuff like that, but just
Yeah,
general ballpark.
we mostly have full-time people and a few tiny contractors. Actually, yeah, I mean, yeah, mostly everyone's full-time, and it's about like 12 to 15-ish people, give or take. Like half the team is in person here in LA, and the other half is kind of all around the world, and such like that.
We also have 6 co-founders. I know we keep saying co-founder here and co-founder there. There's a lot of us on the team. So yeah.
I forced co-founderness on a few people, full equity, and I was like, sorry, you have to suffer with me if you're gonna keep working on this. Like,
I mean, I'm curious. That's worth double clicking into. Was it from a financial equity buy-in perspective, or what was the idea behind that? Because I think Parallel is another studio where I think they've got like 6 or 7 co-founders, but I think their story was like they were all friends and they wanted to do it together. But I'm curious, like, what was the reasoning behind yours?
I think I mean, the CTO and I are best friends. We met on the first day of middle school and ran like every business and product together. And we started out trading in TF2 and virtual items and CSGO and all that other stuff like that. And we had like a handshake deal then of like, we're just 50-50, questions asked on all of our trading profits. And that always worked the best. And we took that into all of our companies that we had started. And and some of those companies that we started, like, it always felt like it was kind of hard to get the buy-in from other people, or I guess the shared like weight of the responsibility, or getting them to take initiative, or wanting to feel like that ownership. And so like after my past like 2 companies or so, I was pretty like, I guess, feeling inspired, where I was like, I will, I'll fuck them over with this equity, and they won't even realize that they'll be equally responsible. They'll be stuck.
It worked. But so like, to me, it felt similar to the whole thesis of the on-chain game. The players own the game. Like if you're gonna, like, I felt like these people like Connor and Flam and the others, like they're just as talented as us in other ways, and the project wouldn't be the same without them. And we're not really money driven to a certain extent, at least myself and the CTO. And so to us, it was like, let's see what happens if we split equity evenly, and just how that goes. And it's been interesting, but I think it was the right call overall. So I don't really necessarily regret it.
That's awesome. I appreciate that you guys aren't necessarily money driven. Because you mentioned grifters earlier, and I think unfortunately we've seen our fair share. Obviously, it's a spectrum. We've seen a lot of great game developers, and gaming is a hit driven business. So a lot of the games that didn't make it, that's just par for the course. But at the same time, I think a lot of the players, a lot of the creators, a lot of the community is also been taken advantage of, whether intentionally or sometimes unintentional as well. But yeah, crypto has. I was hoping that we would have less grifters over time, and it seems like we just ended up getting more, which is wild. But I mean, I think what's notable, one of the things that's notable about your guys' story has been your ability to stay true to your principles and to yourselves, and not get, I don't know, corrupted by the space or shiny objects or whatnot. So I guess like this is a good opportunity to talk a little bit about this post. Hemdall, you guys don't have a token, and raised money through equity in the studio, versus taking money for a token or things like that. I guess, like, again, you guys have could have sold NFTs, could have did this, could have did that, and didn't do any of that stuff, which is very admirable. And I'm curious. I want to dig into that with you guys. Like, where does that come from? Is it just your principles of, well, it doesn't feel right to do, it doesn't make sense to do, we feel confident in what we're doing? I guess, like, where does that come from? And what do you guys think has been the advantages and benefits that it's given you guys?
There's a lot of stuff that goes into this, and I think, just to start, we're just like everybody else in the space. I'm constantly buying into projects and meme coins and NFT games and all kinds of stuff, and we have firsthand account of how these all go wrong every single time. And so, yeah, we could have launched NFTs in 2022 and probably sold out massively. Back, especially after he did the Wolf Game exploit, solve and stuff like that, it would have been pretty easy. But we didn't have the game ready. And so we're launching NFTs with no game, no utility, no nothing. And it's just purely based on hopium that they're going to retain the value. We just knew that's not how we wanted to do things. We didn't want to have people losing money on our account unless we could ensure that there was going to be some sort of stable value retained in those things. And that's been our whole thesis from the beginning, is how can we design the economy so that the assets, the items, the governance, the token, they all maintain some sort of stable value that, is sort of unruggable, potentially. Obviously it's going to come down to a really well-designed economy, and that we launch it the right way, and, that the game is doing well and things like that. But it just doesn't work if you launch it first without the game. And so we never wanted to do it that way. We're pretty stubborn about it, especially when we went into raising. We were like, hey guys, we're not doing it that way. We went through a lot of meetings. We called it the gauntlet. Like, it was like a year of like hundreds and hundreds of VC meetings. And, through that, we managed to like sift out like the most long-term aligned cap table that we could have. And we're really happy with everybody, especially Peter at 1KX and Alice from Shima and, Adiel from Collider. These are like some of our biggest proponents, and they've really been by our side the entire way. And, we really appreciate that they were willing to take a risk on the team that didn't want to do it the way that was so popular back then. Everybody was just raising off the token, and then, they had to launch the token at a certain valuation. We don't have any of that. We can launch the token at, 100K market cap if we want to, and let the community get in at 100K. We think that was the best way to do it. We, through our own stubbornness and our own kind of moral boundaries, managed to get it done, and to be able to retain that till this day. But yeah, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
I think a large part of also is just the economy aspect. Like, if you're going to actually make a real economy, like, you can't start with distributing all the fun bucks before there is anything that the fun bucks get to be spent on. And it doesn't help also, it's like, I'm distributing you a bunch of fun bucks, but I'm secretly, pie chart hiding half the supply, in different distributions of investor and insider and whatever type of, pie chart, dancing that a lot of tokens do. But it's like, and Connor, you can talk about it pretty well, but if you start an economy where half the circulation is, or potential, or finite supply is held just by investors or insiders who are waiting, in a back alley for the second for like any type of normal person, like pick up a dime and they beat them over the head and shake them out and take everything they had. Like, the economy just basically has a loan shark sitting waiting for it to like happen, and then it's a built-in rug pull. Like, if there's not an actual place for that economy to live and be a substrate of, like, then you're just doing a really fancy Web3 driven Kickstarter that is mostly a Ponzi and like a scheme. Like, we want to build a real economy. I think the value and the potential to build a real economy and launch it right is infinitely larger and would dwarf all these like short-term kind of thinking approaches. So like, if you actually were money driven or cared or like greedy, I feel like you should do it our way. But it actually takes effort. So I guess that's probably why that doesn't happen.
Well, and they're very convincing too when you're raising, like, oh, you should just do it. It's easy, like, we'll write the term sheet right now. Like, we could have closed the last round in 3 weeks, from a big VC. I won't say who they were, but and we chose not to because we're like, we don't want to do it that way. And just going on what Fleet just said, is like, you are essentially debt funding your economy. So you're taking a bunch of loans out from these VCs, and it doesn't look like a loan because it's just a token, right? But if you think about it, you're basically raising capital at an extreme valuation for your token, which means you have to launch it at that valuation, which means that your players are going to have to buy the token at that price. And so your players are paying back your loan that you took from the VCs at extreme APYs. Like, it's never going to work because you have to have, essentially, like I said in this tweet, parabolic user growth, and they're going to be paying back that loan for a long time. So you start off behind, whereas if you don't start with any of that, you start fresh. You got nothing, right? So any user growth is accretive to the value of the token. And it's all benefiting your player base because they're the ones that are getting the majority of the token through gameplay. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason not to do it the way that we did it versus the way that has been done. And I think a lot of people are coming around to that nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds so obvious and simple and like common sense, and yet it was so not the norm. I mean, I think you guys are, one of the very few exceptions of game studios that didn't that did it your way and didn't do it the way that everyone else did. And I've talked to a lot of people that were victims of that exact circumstance. But it's like, it's so crazy that we were like living in La La Land for 3-4 years, because that was just the norm. And there were people for sure that were like saying, calling it out, like, guys, this is just never going to work. But I mean, I don't know. We were crazy. It was like, we're surrounded by crazy. It's like everyone's, everyone's swimming naked, but the water was still, no one could tell. But now that it's out and everyone's swimming naked, you're like, wow, dude, we were, yeah, it was like this all the time. Sorry, go ahead, Fleet.
No, I mean, that's the thing, is I think a lot of it is just like the curse of the word tokenomics is like, it was like, oh, it's this special new area. It's almost like a spell. It's an untapped. There's so much to do in it. Yeah, technically, but like, it's ultimately at the end of the day still economics, and economics has been a thing that's been studied for quite a couple thousand years. And there's a lot of pretty long history of things that have and haven't worked. And but again, it's kind of like, it's all math to a certain extent. But yeah,
it's just math, man. It's just math.
Well, to that point, like, I am not a math guy, and I'm not a tokenomics guy, but I was enamored with DeFi and what blockchains could do. And I remember listening to podcasts with Ethereum researchers like Justin Drake, and we had this design space about scalability and speed and security, the trifecta, trilemma, whatever. And I just kind of I falsely assumed when I got into crypto gaming that, like, okay, we had this major surge with Axie Infinity. This idea behind play to earn is brilliant if it can be true and work. And it didn't really work in the first iteration, but maybe that was to be expected. And I thought, okay, there's all these smart people, all this money is coming in. So I assumed that a lot of work was going into the tokenomics and the research and, economic design and player owned economies. And we have these beautiful examples like EVE Online that we can pull from. And I assumed that, not only the VCs that invested and probably had the right connections, but also the studios and teams, that were taking the investment were allocating budget to actual tokenomic design and research, not just pretty pie charts on decks. And again, to be fair, I think maybe a lot of teams did I read a lot of very nice white papers that sounded like they made sense, but again, the reality was a lot of those games launched and within a year they were shutting down. Some of them were shutting down within 3 to 6 months. And it's like, whoa, like that, that just blew my mind. And as we saw over 60 plus game shutdowns last year, it's just like, damn, like, I don't think a lot of that work had been being done. So I guess like, I'll just say to you guys, like, I appreciate the work that you guys are doing, the code that you guys have like lived by, and how either stubborn or just virtuous you guys have like, stayed true to your values. Because I think like, we used to joke in like DeFi, it's like the more autistic the idea or the founder, like the better, right? The better the protocol is going to be. And I've kind of been jokingly saying like, man, we need more autists in crypto gaming to figure this stuff out. Not to call you guys autists or anything like that.
No, I mean, basically everyone on the team is autistic.
I think to be into this at all, anybody in the space, you got to be a little autistic,
yeah. I mean, it's a flex at this point, but it's like, damn, like, there's really like on-chain collision and on-chain movement and stuff like that. Like, these are interesting, problems. And yeah, I mean, the Web3 crypto version of Eve or whatever, like what that actually means, or RuneScape, right? Like that was a game that I came up in, and the examples are there. So I just appreciate that you guys have stayed true. It's almost like, I don't know, the Beatles in a way of like, you guys are, staying true to the art and doing it. And that's how like game changing, world changing stuff gets made. So I'm rooting for you guys in that regard. It's certainly not easy, but at the same time, you guys are, doing it for the right reasons, doing it the right way with the right people, and respect, massive respect. I guess, we've mentioned Eve a few times here, and obviously that was like one of the big inspirations for you guys, not to like, pitch you guys against them or whatever, but I guess how did you guys feel when you saw them announce Eve Frontier? And, do you guys are you paying attention to what they're doing? Is that inspiring at all, or how do you guys look at that?
Oh, I think it's a great thing. I mean, I think, like, again, like Eve Online is basically one of the only working living examples of an actual player-driven economy. And it's the most academically cited virtual economy to date by a million, times. I mean, there's like I think there's like over 15 or 20,000 citations and papers that talk about Eve's economy, because it's just the most accurate analog to a real economy. Which again, it's crazy. You don't necessarily need Web3 to make an economy. It's just economics, and they found a way to do it. I mean, Web3 can do a lot more of it, expansive, unique types of economies and ones that are, maybe have a lot of cooler, potential, but like economies are not exclusive to Web3. I mean, like you said, RuneScape as well. And I think RuneScape Cole has outperformed Ethereum so far for the past years. That says something, right? But no, I think the Eve Frontier stuff is great. I really hope they pull it off, because ultimately, like, like you said, like 60 plus game shutdowns, every game is failing. Like, if there's an actual good, economy driven and real game, especially from the people who made the best example, to date of a player driven economy, I think that's ultimately a massive boon to us, because we're building in the similar category. And if they bring a bunch of people into the space and bring a bunch of people into these, interested in these ideas, and people get excited about the potential, like, we have a similar unique offering, and I think just growing the pie overall is more of the thing. So yeah, we check them out every now and then. I haven't played Eve Frontier maybe in like 8 months, so I should check it out again. I'm just pretty busy working on my own Eve, too. But yeah, I think I really hope they kill it. So I think it just ultimately be positive for the space, and especially even I think Citadel. So it's not, and also I think we're making pretty different products ultimately. A lot of the same pillars and ideas, but they're ultimately very different experiences. So it's
about the same as that there's both spaceships in both games. I will say, yeah, like just adding on to that, like I see every game doing well in our space is incredibly like synergistic. I don't see the space as zero sum at all. I think eventually, like I know you know you and Sam and like all these guys were always saying like Web3 gaming is inevitable, and I think it's 100% true. I think I believe it more. Maybe I won't say that. I won't say I believe it more than him, but uh, I think in 10 to 15 years, most games will have some kind of crypto element in them. I mean, aside from like single player console games or what have you, but and the only way that happens is if we have a few breakout successes, and it's only going to grow the pie from there. So, I mean, if eFrontier is doing good and Cambria is doing good and Gigaverse is doing good and we're doing good, that's better for everyone. I don't see it as we're fighting over some small pie. I see it as in a few years, this pie is going to be insanely massive, and you know we're all going to have our own unique and like hardcore player bases, basically.
Fuck yeah, I love that. I love that. You guys have been super generous with your time, so I appreciate that. I guess like just kind of start to close out here. I'm curious from your perspective, what is it going to take for Citadel to launch and achieve this vision that you guys set out to make and create? I guess like, again, not to like pin you down to timelines, but just general outlook, within a few years, like we want to, launch and, come to market. I guess like there's a few more things that we're working on, got to be figured out and whatnot. But I guess like just, yeah, generally what, like from your perspective now, when you look at, the roadmap and the development, and the things that kind of need to happen, like what are you looking at? What needs to happen? What's it going to take? When game, or like, I just, how do you look at the next 12 months of development is maybe another way to think about it.
I think the next 12 months is really kind of gearing towards more launching stuff and getting the ball rolling. Like I said, like, this, I think end of this week or maybe sometime next week, we're going to do like our first kind of like larger public play test and like, make a splash and some noise about that and try to, carry that momentum forward. But I think we're trying to launch like some type of actual offering, this year, where some aspects of either the economy or some of the on-chain stuff is live, probably closer to, Q3, Q4. And just build on and continue from there. So I think a lot of the work that's left now, besides, I mean, there's easily 10 more years of work and maybe a couple 100,000 more hours I'd like to put in, because I'm autistic. We all have kind of like weapons grade ADD and stuff in the team. I only hire special people.
Bullish.
But yeah, I think a lot of the work left right now is like the game is kind of loosely together and it plays relatively nicely. And I think, it's mostly more content and a lot more of the social features that we want and systems and some more of the progression and stuff. But like, I think, a lot of the work right now is probably cleaning things up and getting it kind of more ready for a larger scale and a more active and live economy, even if it's not the like fully like crypto based one yet, but like ones where like it still matters as we clear wipes and carry things forward and things like that contributes down the line. Because like, yeah, we're not going to launch an economy that is premature. I mean, that's like the whole point. But like we're trying to get things moving in that aspect. So yeah, hopefully public playtests and moving, I'd say we're probably moving out of pre-alpha into alpha, like maybe now, and trying to move towards like a public beta and with that like more active live aspects and more examples of the fuller game. And then from there, just continue to accelerate, as fast as possible. It's not like money is infinite either, having these stubborn morals and refusing to take the slush fund that was flowing around a few years ago of when you could raise a ridiculous amount of money for a fake L2 and a fake token and all that stuff. Like that would have been nice for sure, 100%. But
No, that was the other thing. Yeah, they were all asking us can we add an L2 into this pitch deck?
yeah,
It's like
where's the slide for the L2?
not for us, man.
Yeah.
Um, but so it's like, yeah, we still, I mean, like, we don't have infinite money. We still have runway, and we still have things to, consider and try to, balance our resources. And we've never taken any money from anyone, from any users, anything like that to date. And that's probably going to stay true until there's an actual product for people to engage in. And even then, it's mostly going to the economy and we're just monetizing that. But so, yeah, I don't know. I guess that's the general loose answer, if that makes sense.
No, it's a great answer, and I appreciate that. You mentioned the money and the runway, so if I could just ask, I guess without again going into details that you don't want to share, how have you guys thought about managing that runway? I mean, I think publicly it's you guys raised 3.3 million in equity in the studio. You've been able to manage that extremely well from what I've seen. So congratulations. I think a lot of teams have struggled with their runway and then been forced to, either make decisions or shut down. It seems like you probably have a few levers, in your back pocket that you guys could pull. Maybe more if you guys needed runway or whatnot. But I guess to be honest, I always try and get a sense of it. I try and get a sense of the studio, like, okay, like how much faith and excitement can we put into a various studio, because we've seen how difficult it is. We've seen issues with people having running out of runway or whatnot. So I guess I'm just curious if there's anything that you can speak to in regards to that. Is it a concern? And I guess what would you guys do? Would you guys end up raising more money if you needed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a concern. I think it's always a concern. If you're running a business, you should always be concerned about your runway and how you're spending the money. It's not, especially because it's not your money. Ultimately, it's raised money, it's VC money. It's not like your vacation. But yeah, I think we're probably pretty good until late 2027 at our current rate. But also as unironically as AI and stuff has gotten better, we've been able to be a lot more efficient just on our own and taking on more roles and being a lot more cost effective. And we also pay ourselves nothing. We try to pay ourselves as little as possible, because ultimately the thing we want is the game, and we spend all of our time just working on the game. There's not really anything to spend money on besides rent and food anyways. So I think that's partly we're pretty efficient there.
My wife doesn't enjoy that part.
Yeah.
But I mean, again though, I think back to Hollow Knight, that raised 56 grand on Kickstarter and then spent 3 years living in a shoebox and then made one of the greatest indies ever with 3 guys. It's all the great games, Grand Theft Auto, all the great games have this incredible lore story where it was just game development, long nights, crazy hours, impossible task, but did it for the love of the game, love of the, because what else was there? And then you just make something that becomes so iconic and, beloved and long lasting and just changes people's lives for years and years and years to come. Shout out to Doji in the chat saying maybe renting cards, Pokemon cards, probably. Food is meh. I guess sorry, I didn't want to cut you guys off if there was a point that you wanted to make there. But
no, yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think we'll be good. Ideally, we want to try to monetize relatively soon-ish in a non, fuck over ourselves and fuck over the economy or fuck over other, actual players and people way. I mean, which is, I think, pretty easy to do when you have a real product and an actual game that people intrinsically want to play and enjoy, as opposed to just, extrinsically trying to dump on the next person. But yeah, I think we're doing a pretty good job, all things considered. I mean, like you said, like every other studio is shutting down, and they spend significantly more than we ever have, and have significantly less than a game that we have, if they ever had a game to begin with. So I think that's
which is like, the people that I think you guys are in rarefied air, and in some ways a privileged position, because I think that the spectrum will spin back to when people want to come and invest in a game. Citadel is one of the top games. It's like, okay, they've been building, they've shown that they're responsible with the funding. They've done everything right, throughout this entire time. Like, that's even like your track record of building Citadel is far more investable. And so I don't want to say like, it'll be easy for you guys to raise money, but I think that story is out there, and it's kind of been proven that you've already been able to raise money. And the vision is fantastic, and you've got a lot to show, which I wanted to ask that, like, you guys had your GDC demo. People are starting to get their hands on the game. People are experiencing what you've been building. How has that been for you guys to see people's reaction, to see this game that you guys have been building, being tested in the wild, and getting that feedback? And like, what are some of the things that you guys have heard?
No, it's the best feeling ever, to actually see people play and enjoy the game, especially in person. When we saw that for the first time, that was, we did an event at our office for LA Tech Week and stuff. And that's, we set like a massive LAN party for the game, and that was awesome. Hundreds of people came. I think we somehow had one of the biggest LA Tech Week events just out of vibes, and just like making it actually a fun, cool experience and like interesting. But yeah, that was. I mean, it's been incredible. There's really nothing better than getting feedback and watching people play the game, and being able to make it better based on what people want to see, and things they run into in the rough edges. But I mean, I don't know, kind of, Connor, you have your own answer, but
I mean, I love seeing like the creative builds people make, stuff that, I do a lot of some of the item design. I mean, we all do a little bit of the item design and stuff like that, but we have like this really cool kind of modular grid that you can put items onto, and you can kind of fit your ship however you want to and make it, whatever you want. And I'm always seeing these builds. I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Like, and that, to me, that's like, oh, the thing's working. It's like there's enough opportunity to min max, like you said earlier, and like do these different things, and it works in all kinds of ways that us as the developers never even thought to use the items in that way. And to me, that's like one of the coolest things. I'm like, oh, this is sick. Like, players are coming up with broken builds and killing all the NPCs without having to actually take any damage. I'm like, okay, I better make these NPCs a little better. But that stuff's really sick, and I just love to see people enjoying the game and flying around. And a lot of people really like the maps, and they like that it's in browser, and they like the movement a lot, which is great, because that went through so many iterations, and I'm like, nobody wants to touch the movement anymore, because it was a lot of work to get it to feel good. But yeah, I mean, it's all amazing. It's especially after all of these years of work, to finally see people playing the game. It's been really, really cathartic, I guess.
That's awesome, guys. I am so excited for you guys. I've really enjoyed doing this show, because I've been connecting with way more game developers and having conversations like this. And it's so cool to hear the stories behind the games and behind the founders and studios. And it also is like re-energizing me in so many ways, because I'm like, oh man, there are some killers that are just building right now, and the future is very much looking bright, and Web3 gaming is very much alive. And you guys deserve every little bit of praise and shout outs that you guys do get, even though I still think in many ways you're slept on. But that's probably a good thing for now.
Well, I want to say really quick, because I know you've said a lot of nice things about us, and I just want to say, like, without you guys, like, doing your thing on Twitter, and like you guys are the ones that actually like keeping the space alive at this point. You know, every day I log on and I see another post from you or another post from Sam or Spike or any of these, you know, Wolves Down guys, and I'm like, all right, like you know, it's cool. The Web3 space, it is actually inevitable, and without you guys doing your thing, like I don't think anybody would be looking at the space anymore. So I just want to say, like, I appreciate what you guys are doing every day, and you know, talk about being stubborn. You guys are up there. So
Yeah.
I love it, man.
For sure. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. We don't got much to go off of these days, so I'll take the validation. It means a lot. I'm running on fumes and validation.
We'll give you an actual game that you can play soon. You know.
Yeah.
That should help. Right? All the Web3 game creators, they can have a game for once.
Yeah, and shout out to Sam, shout out to Spike, shout out to the Wolves. No, I completely agree. You know, Peyton and Sam and the Wolves, like I very much always say that they created the home that I found in the space, and it would not be near as impactful or as fun or as meaningful without that. I'm super bummed that I didn't you know have a chance to swing by at GDC. I wish I would have. But you know, there's always the next GDC. Guys, we've covered a lot. You've been super generous with your time. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you just wanted to share or get out, or is what would be, and if not, then like what would be the best way to stay up to date with the project? Is it to jump in the Discord, you know, be active there? You've got a playtest coming out soon, so where can people go to follow the best updates?
Yeah, I mean, we'll be posting for once and probably more actively on our Twitter pretty soon. So I think the main place if people want to play the game, you know, you can join our Discord right now and ask to join the closed play tests. We're pretty open. It's super secret. You just have to ask. And funny because people keep being like, wait, there's a play test, like right, like after all, people like come in and check after years, and they're like, oh shit, it's like it's happening. But yeah, so, and we'll be merging the closed playtest over into the public, you know, our main one. So it'll all start happening there. So yeah, just follow the Twitter, join the Discord now if you want to start playing, and we can maybe sneak you in. Otherwise, the actual, you know, bigger playtest with a lot of new stuff will be pretty soon, probably next week.
Awesome, man. Super exciting. Thank you guys for your work. Thank you for the time. Open invite to the platform anytime you guys want to come back, or you know, we want to amplify, you know, you guys as much as possible, and you know, get people in there playing the game and giving feedback. And again, I mean, you know, I don't know, it's probably, I'm sure, I can't even imagine how difficult game development is. Thank you for the kind words. My job's easy, right? I just log into Twitter and hang out. You guys are the ones that are like having breakthroughs and, you know, on-chain physics. So really, like,
I don't know. Twitter is like a full-time job, man. I've tried posting every day, and it's a lot of work.
You do great, man. You do great, dude. You got
shit.
Yeah, dude, you got. I push back on both of those claims. Both of you have aura and motion. You know, you guys actually do stuff, right? Fleet, you went viral, you know, breaking a Wolf game and whatnot. So, yeah. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. You guys have been amazing. Thank you so much for the time. And anything that I can ever do to support you guys, my DMs are always open, or you know, we'll stay connected. So yeah, appreciate the time, guys.
Cool. You know, yeah, appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having us on.
Likewise. I'm gonna drop you off the stream now, and then I'll do my little outro. But best of luck, guys. You know, keep fighting the good fight.
We'll try.
All right, guys, that was Fleet and Hemdahl from Citadel. Damn. This is why I love this podcast. Shout out to Ghostcat. Shout out to Doji. Shout out to May Media and everyone else in the Blaze stream. Shout out to everyone on Blaze. Dude, I jumped on the call and I was like, oh, we're doxing. Like, I didn't know how much these guys doxed. This is my first time seeing them. So that was super cool. What a conversation. What an ambitious project. What a doing it right, dude. I mean, it can't be understated. Like, I kept trying to say it, but for them, they're just like, I mean, it's like, yeah, that's what we did, and that's how we did it. But like, to not take money, to not sell NFTs, to not, do any of the token BS, to not do any of the engagement farming is just so rare. And it's so, I can't imagine how difficult it was or is to not have like succumbed to that pressure or that like temptation. I mean, it didn't seem like it was difficult for them. They're just like, why would we do that? That doesn't make sense. And I can relate to that because there's been a lot of stuff in my journey as a creator that I've been like, why would I do that? That doesn't make sense. I don't like that. That feels wrong. Like, I'm not doing that. I'll give up money. I'll give up growth. I'll give up success. I'll give up all this stuff. Cause like, no, like that's not right. But again, like, when you're at the circus and everyone's wearing the clown mask, you're the crazy one for like being normal. But I don't know, man. My original thesis for getting into crypto gaming was like, yes, it's a hit-driven business. It's an impossible task. Blockchain, hit game, player-owned economy, all this stuff. And like 99.99% of games are going to fail, and it's going to be incredibly painful, like wading through all that carnage. And it's been way more painful and difficult than I even imagined. But the reason I did it was because I fully believed that through all of that, there would be a game that would change the world. Crypto gaming is inevitable, right? And that would open up the floodgates and usher in this new paradigm of blockchain and gaming and, power to the players and a more equitable relationship between the studio and the players, player owned economy and all that stuff. And what it even means to have like own assets in a game and all this stuff, right? That vision was like what kept me going. And when I talk to Hemdahl and Fleet and like see what they're doing with Citadel, it's like, man, it's checking all of those boxes. It's like, that's so dope. I want them to succeed so badly. I'm rooting for them because great guys and doing everything the right way. And building like an incredibly ambitious but beautifully architected and designed thing. Not just like blowing smoke up, but like, that's cool. That's sick, And I love that they're like, I'm like, I want to ask them about eFrontier, but I don't know. And they're like, dude, we love what they're doing. That's amazing. And I'm like, dude, that's what a great answer. Great guys. So super cool. Super cool. Shout out to Hemdahl, shout out to Citadel, shout out to Fleet. Like, watch those guys closely. Watch that team, watch that game closely. Jump into the Discord. Partake in the next play test. I think what they're doing is sick. And I also like that they're, again, being very honest and transparent of like, we've got a lot of work to do. It's getting there, but like, we still have to solve some big problems. It's very much in development where we don't make noise because like, until we feel like there's something to make noise about. We've had that conversation a few times on the podcast with other studios and developers, and it's like, yeah, that's right. Like, that's right. So big shout out to the boys over there. Guys, let's take a look at this week's schedule. Tomorrow, we've got Andre from Diggle Games, super cool developer, solo dev, building games with AI. He actually participated in one of B3's game jams last year, and his game was like one of the top 3 finishers of that game jam. Super, super fun. I've played it a bunch. He's continued to develop games with AI, so I'm super excited to talk with him. I think that'll be really cool. On Thursday, we've got Ghost Cat Joypad, who's been in the chat hanging out coming on to tell us all about Mooncats and what he's been building. Really looking forward to that convo. And then on Friday, we're running back the poker tournaments with Gripst, my guy. We're going to be on ACR Poker. I think we've got like 250, maybe $300 to get to put up for the prize pool. It might be like $1 to enter. And I think we're going to have like some free entries and stuff. So that's going to be super fun. We're running back the poker stream on Blaze, which I always have a blast with those. And that's going to do it. That's going to do it for the week. Light week, but super fun week. Looking forward to the conversations. And that's basically it, guys. That's the show today. I appreciate y'all tuning in. It's been a while since we've gone 90 minutes, but that's how you know it was a good one. So big shout out to Citadel. Man, that was cool. That was a really good one. Crypto gaming is alive, man. Crypto gaming is alive and well. It's not making noise. It's not getting like, it's so easy right now to dunk on crypto gaming, and that's fine. Like, have fun on Twitter, but like, work is being done, you know, like really, really hard, important work is being done. And kudos to those developers who can tune out the noise and just focus on the vision. Because that's what it takes. That's what it takes. Guys, my name is Icy Gaming. This has been Gaming Daily Live. That's Blaze. That's YGG Play. Thank them for sponsoring this show and making it possible. I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, stay humble, keep gaming, keep dreaming.